Let's take a look at the top 10 running backs in both Dynasty and Redraft and compare which players rank where across both rankings. Do we value J-Rob the same in Redraft as we do Dynasty? Where do we rank Barkley, who's coming back in 2021? Where does McCaffrey rank? Where does Kamara rank? Derrick Henry has a great schedule walking into the remaining part of 2020. Will he be so good in weeks 11 through 16 that he goes in the top 4 in Dynasty? Where does Clyde rank? We're going to compare Redraft to Dynasty and talk about the differences, but also attack both of them so that you're prepared for the remainder of your 2020 season and also for your 2021 Redraft and your 2021 Dynasty outlook. All of that and more, the Fantasy Football Show begins now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty! Okay, so I'm going to put Redraft on this side of the board, and I'll put Dynasty on this side of the board. Now we're going to see a big difference between the 2021 top 5 and the 2020 top 5. And this isn't just 2021, it's Dynasty, so it could be 2022 mindset. Everybody's going to view Dynasty a little bit different. For me, it's about a 2-year window. I'm not looking at 1 year, I'm looking pretty much at 2. I'm not necessarily looking at 3 or 4. I do a 2 to 3 year window at most, because even a player that's 22, 23 years old, he can hit a wall really quickly. Look at Todd Gurley and how young he is. People that worry too much about getting a 24 or 23 year old versus a 26 year old are going to always be, I think, chasing second place. Number 1 in Redraft, you could make the argument that it's Cook or Kamara, but I think everyone pretty much feels like Kamara is probably a little bit safer because Cook has the injury risk. He already got banged up a little bit this year, missed 1 game. He missed time last year. Even though Kamara missed time last year, he is the bona fide elite 1.1 in Redraft because there isn't any risk of him battling injury this year. And even with Winston under center, they're going to pass to him a ton. He is so overutilized, it's not even funny. Over here, though, do we put him 1 or do we put Christian McCaffrey at 1.1? I kind of lean right now, as of November 19th, I lean CMC. I think we're all going to be reminded how amazing he is once he's back and not in and out of the lineup. He coming back into fantasy worlds and then exiting again to just miss more time is leaving a bad taste in people's mouth temporarily, but I think he will return to the 1.1 in Dynasty. But you're not off your rocker to have Kamara at 1.1. But I think it's pretty safe to say the consensus will be that Kamara is at least top 2 heading into 2021 drafts and Dynasty type mentality. That leaves us here at 1.2 in Redraft, and I think Dalvin Cook is the only player you can consider here, unless you're swapping these guys and going Cook 1, which I get and I totally sign off on if that's how you want to rank it. Cook, Kamara, Cook. While I think one can't argue that Cook has to be 1 or Kamara has to be 1, I think the thing that no one can argue with any effectiveness is that the top 2 doesn't consist of these 2, just the order doesn't really matter. So now what are we doing here? Is Cook 3? If Cook's number 2 automatically in Redraft as of week 11, entering week 11, does that make him the bona fide top 3 pick here in Dynasty and in future years? Or does Barkley enter the equation again? Will Derrick Henry finish so strong that he has to command 3 overall value? I personally think if we're going Cook 2 here and we're cementing him in, you have to have the same kind of confidence in him from a Dynasty perspective. Yes, he does have the injury risk. He's always going to carry that. He's always going to be a little bit more injury prone, I think, than Kamara. Even though Kamara missed time in 2019, I think Kamara is less likely to get hurt. But both of these guys have those super handcuffs. You have Lat Murray and Madison. And I don't care what anybody thinks about Madison having a dud game the game he was called upon this year when he was starting the lone starter. I don't care. I know what I see. My eyes don't lie. Madison has talent that could be top 5 to 10 per start if ever called upon. I don't know that Madison has the makings of an every down back for multiple years in a row, but in that fill-in type situation, even starting half a year, I'd have faith in Madison being a top 5 to 10 running back on half of a season as a plug and play, as a replacement for Dalvin Cook. Same thing for Lat Murray. I don't know that Lat Murray has a 2 to 3 year window of being an elite running back, of getting all the carries for the Saints, but if he is forced to start 10 straight games in 2021 and he's still on the roster, let's say, then yeah, I think he can be a top 5 to 10 running back. It's a temporary plug and play situation with both those backups. And now you have Mike Davis as a super backup. Essentially in Dynasty, if you have all 3 of these guys, assuming Mike Davis is still on the roster in 2021, you have literally the top 3, probably more secure than we would imagine coming out of 2020. Our initial reactions heading into 2021 will be, oh my God, we can't predict anything. We're going to have all this risk. Well, you know what? You have probably 3 of the top 5, if not 3 of the top 3 best backups in the league for every single one of these guys. All 3 of these backups, Lat Murray, Madison, and now Mike Davis, have top 5 to 10 running back upside of starting for these prospective teams. And that's something really nice to take into 2021. I'm feeling very, very good about that. Okay, so right now we don't have McCaffrey yet at number 3, and I don't think we can put him here as of the moment, not knowing when he's going to return. He's going to miss week 11. I think that with the schedule, it puts Henry locked in at number 3. So Henry is the locked and loaded number 3 in redraft moving forward. You got Christian McCaffrey left. You have Aaron Jones, James Robinson, Zeke Elliott, Josh Jacobs, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. In redraft, I probably would lean at number 4 overall. I would lean Aaron Jones. And that's a little bit risky, I know that. And this will be the first time where Dynasty and Redraft are very far apart. Not extreme. I don't think Aaron Jones will be even close to number 4 overall on the Dynasty side. So in Dynasty, we're not going with Aaron Jones. We could maybe go Derrick Henry. I know everyone's going to write him off, but I think Elliott in Dynasty is different than Elliott in Redraft. Dak should be back, or the quarterback situation should be much improved heading into 2021. I think Elliott will still be a top 5 running back volume wise, so he just needs to have his situation get ironed out. I think Derrick Henry would be number 5, and I think he finishes on such a tear in weeks 11 through 16 due to schedule that he locks himself into top 5, 6 overall value heading into 2021 drafts and into dynasty mindsets. Okay, on the redraft side, it's tough to say who this next player could be. Is it Christian McCaffrey? We know he's probably gonna miss this week, and there's a good chance, because the Carolina Panthers have a week 13 bye, they could sit him the entire rest of the season up until the bye week, and then bring him back in week 14, and they could even shut him down. They're being kind of coy about the injury. He saw the second opinion, which is not a good sign. That second opinion didn't shut him down, which is a good thing, but we still don't know what we're dealing with. I think at this point, if we had to draft for weeks 11 through 16 on, we still can't put CMC at 5 because we don't know what we're getting. I kind of feel like this is really high to a lot of people, but J-Rob just is deserving. And this is another one where he's going to be so further down the way on the dynasty board. Not a ton, but he won't be near top 5. He'll be more along the bottom of the, I think, probably the 9, 10, 11 range, if I had to guess. Or maybe not. We'll see when we get there. But I do know that these two values for Aaron Jones and J-Rob will differ in Dynasty, whereas the top guys so far haven't been too off pace of the Dynasty ranks. Okay, in Dynasty, now that Kamara's gone, Cook's gone, McCaffrey's gone, Elliott's gone, and Henry's gone, we need to start looking at, Jacobs, Aaron Jones, J-Rob, but also Barkley. I know everybody's going to be so down on Barkley because the injury is fresh, but he is, if not the number one player I could see bouncing back. He's one of the top candidates I could see bouncing back from an ACL tear as long as everything's going to go well and there's no setbacks because of the quad strength. The quad strength is so tied to the integrity of the knee and keeping the joint tight that when you have massive quad muscles and muscles surrounding your knee like Barkley has, that's pretty much unmatched in the league. Barkley's thigh muscles and the surrounding muscles around his knee are doing more of a job of keeping his knee joint tight than the ACL is actually doing when he has one intact. I'm not saying he doesn't need the surgery or he doesn't need an ACL necessarily, but a guy like Garrison Hurst came out of college not knowing that he didn't even have an ACL in one of his knees. And during the combine and all the medical stuff that led up to the NFL draft, they figured out that he had torn his ACL in high school. And his thigh strength was so magnificent that he didn't even need the ACL. His thigh muscles and surrounding muscles around his knee were so tight that Garrison Hurst didn't actually need the ACL, but he went ahead with the surgery anyway because teams were apprehensive about ACL tears back then, and he literally wouldn't have been drafted high at all had he not just forced the surgery upon himself. Again, Barkley had to have the surgery to repair what was probably looks like a broken rubber band sitting in the middle of his knee. You have to take the ACL out, and it's better to replace it. But all I'm saying is Barkley, out of any player in the NFL, has the potential to, I think, bounce back better than anybody's expecting from that ACL tear. So I think that you're going to see his value climb as we get closer and closer to like March, April, May, whereas people are going to be a little standoffish ranking him around 5 or 6 in Dynasty because they're just the injury's fresh in their mind. Number 6 in redraft, I think I'm going to put CMC here. I think it's about time to say that even if he misses a game in week 11, if he does come back in week 12 and he has a bye in week 13, I think he could miss week 12. I really do because of the week 13 bye. But I think if you could weather through it, he would be a guy that would win you a league. Now, if you need a win this week and next week and you're out of the playoffs, then you have to reassess where you would put Christian McCaffrey on your own ranking if you were, let's say, drafting for now through week 16 only. Obviously, Barkley's not going to touch our redraft rankings because he's out for the year. That will be the one player we won't be tossing back and forth between these two. So you have Elliott over on the Dynasty side, but not on the redraft side. We have Aaron Jones and J-Rob so far on the redraft side, but not on the Dynasty side. So at what point do we put Aaron Jones? At what point do we put James Robinson? Do we put Jacobs ahead of both of them or not? So I think Elliott, Jacobs, and maybe a Chubb would be the guys you would consider right here. I personally think Elliott would be worth the risk at this point. I know a lot of people might disagree. I think Chubb would probably be next in line. And I think that Kareem Hunt deserves a look around the 10 range, just so everybody knows, like, where's Hunt? Why do you have Hunt on here, Smitty? I think Jacobs right here. Then I think it's between Sanders, Clyde, which I know I'm going to get some pushback on, Hunt. Mixon deserves a look. I know Swift deserves a look. You could even talk about a guy like Gibson here. Some will say Carson, Connor, James Conner, Kenyon Drake could bounce back. I think it's a pretty good top 10 though in redraft, and a lot of arguments can be made in the 9 or even 7 to 14 range. So if you want Sanders here or Mixon here, again, I'm mentioning that they are worthy of probably a 7 to 14 range. So I'm already telling you I'm not disagreeing with you if you want to slot Mixon at 9. If you want Sanders at 8. Or James Conner needs to be 10. Smitty, why is James Conner not 10? From a Dynasty perspective, we need J-Rob in the conversation here. Jacobs, Aaron Jones, and Clyde, and Chubb, and Gibson, and Mixon, and everybody we just named, Sanders. I think Aaron Jones deserves the ranking for now. This could definitely change in the offseason. I could see this being one guy that either climbs even higher or completely falls out of my top 10. Much will depend on how he finishes the 2020 season. But Aaron Jones for now commands that. I think J-Rob commands this for the moment. And again, he could be up or down heading into 2021 on my board. I don't know. I could rank him higher. Much depends on his finish. I think CEH, I'm going to get pushback on this, but I think He is in the best offense in the NFL, and he's still the starter. And they're going to lean on him more and more. He could be sporadic, and that's why he ranks outside of the top 10 running backs in redraft. I'm being honest and unbiased there. But from a dynasty perspective, Clyde has a very, very bright future. So right here, I think Jacobs definitely deserves a look. So does Chubb. So does Hunt. So does Sanders. So all you Sanders owners, stop getting upset. You can lower your fist. Eckler, Mixon, Gibson, I said Swift, I think all deserving of consideration, probably from number 9 all the way down to 14 or 15. So I am telling you right now, I agree with you that you can argue Swift at number 9, that you could argue Clyde all the way down at 14 or 15. I get it. You don't have to get upset about it. I am Smitty approving any of these guys I just mentioned and whoever I might have missed to be 9 worthy. Number 9 overall worthy. So calm down. That's going to do it. Subscribe, follow, tell your friends, tell your grandma, and get on over to sleeperu.com for all the rankings, bowl predictions. Get on over to heysmitty.com if you need a phone call. I'll call you up right now. We'll talk about your team, your league. We'll cook up trade ideas for Dynasty, Redraft. Doesn't matter. Tell you what movies to watch. heysmitty.com. And if you ever get lost, go to smitty1.com. That'll bring you back to the show. But you're not going to need that, right? Because you're going to go hit that notification bell. Later.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Top 5 running back. You're watching the Fantasy Football Show.
Smitty!